Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new preview from Easy Allies. My name is Ben Hansen, and I'm here with...
Hey, I'm Daniel Bloodworth, managing editor over at Easy Allies.
And just to be clear, Daniel Bloodworth, you're doing the preview for MinnMax, and I'm doing the preview for Easy Allies. That's the way this Freaky Friday situation is working.
Sure. Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thank you for joining for this, Blood. So we both recently went to Novato, California, north of San Francisco there to check out Lego 2K Drive. Full disclosure, 2K sent us up there, flew us up there. I stayed at a hotel on their dime, all that fun stuff. So we both got to check it out, and then we're like, well, we could pull in some schmuck from MinnMax. Look, I could get Janet Garcia. Janet Garcia isn't a schmuck, but I could just ramble at her to talk about and then in the Lego game, and then in the Lego game. But I was like, why don't we just cross the streams and talk to each other about the game that we both played at times together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, it's always fun to sort of get these invitations of we have an unannounced game,
right?
And what could it be, And then you're like, oh, it's a Lego open world, but AAA. Okay, I'm maybe into that. We'll see.
Right, and I want your expertise on driving. Expert driver, Blood. I didn't get to see any of you driving at this event, but I'd imagine you're just a real pro. And I really like the Lego games, and I like driving games. I like the Forza Horizon games in particular and stuff. So I'm curious to see how this all melds. But that initial pitch of when they explained this top secret game, and they're like, visual concepts. The team from the NBA games, and then also the most recent WWE games, they're making an open world driving game. It's like, I don't know. It's a Lego game. It's like, okay, now I'm doubly wondering what this is going to be like. I have to see how this turns out. And then we haven't really shared hot takes or impressions after the event. But personally, I was like, yeah, that's solid. I had a good time playing that game, man.
Yeah, I think, my my point of comparison and my, sort of thing is that big Lego expansion that they had for Forza Horizon.
Yep, I love that. That was great.
Yeah, but one of the, the things is when you do that, you're using the handling model for Forza Horizon.
Yep.
You're using a lot of the regular cars. And one of my disappointments with that expansion was just the car selection. There are very few Lego cars there. And so it's great to go into this and have a bunch of cars and have a lot of these other things that we're gonna get into with Lego.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of top line thing is that it's more like open world Mario Kart than a Horizon.
100% open world Mario Kart. It's one of those things that you start thinking about. And it's okay, 2K, they could probably use another game for kids in their library. There's not too much kid-friendly 2K stuff. So their pitch for the Lego company making an open world Mario Kart style game with probably microtransactions in the garage store, which we can definitely talk about. And it's a huge looming question mark block for this entire thing. But just that basic pitch of 2K makes open world Mario Karts, sign the check. That's a great pitch. And I think there's going to be a big audience for this thing. Recently I was babysitting my nephews, and my 6-year-old nephew was just in love with Forza Horizon 5. He was all in on it. I'm like, you know what? You take that enthusiasm, you add a coat of cuteness of Lego over the top and gameplay that, it's an arcade racer, but it felt fine to me. I think this could be really big for him.
Yeah. And I think the power-ups and stuff when you're in the races. One thing that I do think is maybe for some people important to note is that when you get into a race, then you go to a completely separate track. The track is not part of the map in any way that I can tell. It loads,
yeah.
And there's a separate mode that is more like Mario Kart where you can just do the tracks back to back.
Yep, that is interesting. Just kind of how segmented this game is, because it's hey, open world, but it's there's several biomes you can load to, and they're not going to blow you away by how big they are, but it's good size. There's a lot of activities in there and all that stuff that we can unpack along the way. But definitely a couple times, because we played it for 3 or 4 hours? 4 hours more or less?
Yeah, about 3 hours or so if you don't count the presentation before.
Yeah. But I definitely had that thought a couple times of now I don't know about how Easy Allies does it at MinnMax. We don't like to say the phrase lazy devs at any point. However, there were a couple moments in this where I was just Nintendo, what are you doing? Why didn't you make this game first? This works really well. Why isn't this the next Mario Kart in our Switch right now? Because it turns out these ingredients, when you stack them up, it's surprisingly fun just to have a cute little open world racer. But the Mario Kart comparison, let's get this out of our system, because it is weird to jump into a game like this and try and wrap your mind around new Mario Kart power-ups. Right. I guess, was it Blur? What was the...
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one was kind of like, okay, let's see the analogies for the Mario Kart stuff. And then for this one, it's like, okay, instead of having like the squid ink on your screen, you got spiders. You have to tap Y to like get the spider webs off you and stuff like that. All right, that's what that is. This is the shell equivalent. Here's the rocket, that type of thing. But yeah, what'd you think about just the power-ups and the silly stuff in there?
Yeah, I think that they all work. Obviously, like you're saying, like it takes some time to figure out, like, okay, so what does this one thing do exactly? Like, what exactly does the lightning bolt do? Instead of the blue shell, they have kind of like a warp. Like you just kind of like go into a portal and end up like further up in the pack kind of thing.
That was interesting. Yeah. Whereas like myself and I think somebody else were asking about like, yeah, what was that weird light speed thing? And they're like, oh, that's a power up that you get if you're in last place and it'll automatically put you in first place. It's like just the most obvious rubber banding possible. But you know what? It's a Lego racing game, everybody. What'd you expect? They got to have some stuff in there for everybody.
I do think that, one of the things that was really like it caught me off guard is that there is a very distinct jump button.
Yes.
And like, yeah, you do the hops in Mario Kart, but it's not much. But in this, there was an open world objective to like jump over these barns, within this time limit. And I'm like, I was approaching it Forza Horizon style, right? It's like I'm trying to find the hill that's gonna like get me the right angle to go over this barn, and it just wasn't happening. And then I realized, oh, there's a jump button. I just jump over the barn. So it's like a really high jump. But that also plays into, like it plays into shortcuts in the tracks. It plays into collectibles and the open world where there's kind of like little platforming elements. So it's like, okay, find the right angle and then make the jump to get over to this rooftop or whatever.
Yeah, I liked the activities in the open world and just like how fast they were to restart. Whereas a bunch of just wacky stuff like, okay, yeah, you mentioned you kind of like jump over these buildings and land in the middle of this bullseye in just the right spot. If you don't hit it, you hit up on the D-pad, you're doing it again just over and over. And like that type of just quick variety was really fun. Even just having, I don't know if you hit this one, but the first big area, there's kind of the tutorial little area. And then the first big area you get is called Big Butte, which looks like it's very much inspired by the Cars 1 environment, if you want to just be simplistic about it.
Right.
But then exploring there, you find stuff like, oh, here's a giant egg that you have to like push into a skillet. It's like, okay, that's a good time in any game. I'll do that. And then the one that really got me was there's one where it's like drive through the tunnel. And it's like, American Southwest, and there's a tunnel. It's like, okay, cool, drive through it. Then you realize it's full on Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner tunnel where it's just painted on the side of it. That's very good. And technically...
Yeah, because it's the villain that gives you that objective.
Right,
so.
That's right. It's all canonical. There's a deep lore here. But technically, Blood, fun fact, there's a game called Sheep Raider on the PlayStation 1 that does that same gag. It's really good where you're running around trying to chase down the Roadrunner, and they also have just the tunnel painted on the side. But it's awesome in a video game when you can actually be tricked by that just brilliant 10 out of 10 joke from Wile E. Coyote. So yeah, it was just fun to like hop around to these different activities, check them off the list, quick restart, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And like what you're saying is like some of those activities will be like little quick point-to-point races where you have to get to like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different checkpoints. And I found those like, because with the story races, like I would come in first just about every time.
Sure.
Like it would be like a tight first, it's like, oh, they're right on my tail kind of thing, like very Mario Kart style. But when you do these things that are more about beating a specific time and getting through these checkpoint races, it's like I was struggling to get anything above a bronze. Like I would just like keep hitting that retry. Like, okay, finally got a silver. Thank you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wonder. 2K was very interesting. Where after the fact, they're like, "How was the difficulty?" I think they had some feedback that maybe some things were challenging. So I'm sure they're still going to be balancing this because they got a little bit of time, not much time, because this thing's coming out pretty gosh darn fast overall.
Yeah, in May.
Yeah. Okay, I'm curious about your take on drifting. They're really pushing drifting. Like the first tutorial you get in the game is basically, hey, here's how you drift and stuff. What'd you think of that overall? You think that's beneficial? Because personally, I was waiting for like a little bit of that you drift and maybe the Kirby air ride, like a little bit of the boost after, and I wasn't really feeling that too much. But what'd you think of the drifting?
Yeah, you don't really get that. It's just really, it's just about hitting the angles in those curves. I don't think there's a whole lot, like, and there's also a quick turn, which is interesting. That is better in some situations. The thing that fills your boost, though, is smashing Lego pieces, which is perfect because it heals you and it fills your boost, and that just it always feels good. It always feels good to smash some stuff.
Yeah, and that's it will be.
And you can even hit pedestrians and stuff, and it's just gonna like comically like fly across the screen. It's like
That is wild. Yeah, I was surprised by that. Of like, you can just go find a rocket power up around the world, and then just like go to a crowded area in the town and just like shove a rocket into this crowd of people. It's like, all right, this is a bold move for a Lego game, but sure. I think like I had a pretty good time with the game overall. It's good, easy gaming. But one knock I think was like kind of I'm curious to see if this will get worked on a little bit, but kind of like the pedestrians, they were kind of, you'd run into them and they'd go flying and then they would kind of disappear. And I was also kind of bummed out, but like they were all, as far as I could tell, were all just saying like Walla Walla noises. Like they weren't even speaking English. It was like just a weird Simlish sound that like I've never really heard in a Lego game. So maybe that was placeholder. I don't know, but I guess that would be a lot of dialogue to record for all these people walking around in these little towns within the larger Big Butte area and whatnot.
What I do think is cool though is like with each of those story races, which basically introduce, every one of the like distinct tracks.
Yeah.
You're going up against a character who all have like these jokey, punny names.
Right.
But what's great though is they all have unique cars. And so you unlock a car, and this is something we should have said like right off the top. You have a loadout of 3 vehicles.
Right.
And it does this thing from the Crew 2 where your vehicle will automatically transform. So if you have a street car, and while you're on the road, you'll be driving that street car, and that'll be like a Ferrari or F1 car or whatever.
Mine was Desire.
What's that?
I said my street car was Desire. Blood.
Desire. Oh.
It's a 3 out of 10 joke. Keep moving, baby. That's not how Easy Allies does it. Keep moving.
As soon as you go off-road, your car will rebuild itself into an off-road vehicle.
Right.
And then as soon as you get onto the water, your car will rebuild itself into a boat. And so at any given time, you have this loadout of cars in your collection. So it's like you pick your street vehicle, you pick your off-road vehicle, and you pick your boat, and they all have different stats of health and max speed and all of this kind of thing to kind of play around with, as well as you get these kind of like sockets to put like a modifier in to increase one of those stats. And you unlock, looks like you'll unlock 3 sockets over the course of the game. Yeah,
it's a little bit like, Mario Kart where you turn into the glider and stuff like that. It doesn't slow you down at all. Like the transformations will happen all over the place. There's definitely some areas where like, and I'm sure this is still being worked on. Who knows? There's a preview build, everybody. But, we'd be like racing as a boat in the river, and then we'd go off like a jump in the middle of the river. And when you're on that jump, because it's a platform, you'll turn into the car for a split second. And then when you land again, you'll turn back into the boat. Like there's those weird hiccups where if you're right on the edge, it'll kind of...
that could be tricky a little bit for sure. Like they make the switch a little too soon sometimes. Yeah.
Right. But I was delighted just by the range of vehicles, like you mentioned before. And then just like, not that deep into the game. It's like, okay, you start out your off-road vehicle. It's kind of like a little 4-wheeler dune buggy type thing. And then like, I think the next one I got was like, here's a moon buggy. And you're driving around because a lot of things in the Big Butte area are kind of alien themed. So it's fun for them to have your off-road vehicle be this gigantic moon buggy so quickly.
Yeah. And there was another one that was like, it was basically like an airplane, but right. It's just like without wings. It was just like big old prop on the front and these big wheels and stuff.
Yeah, it's absurd. And that's not even the extent of it, because then the last demo they showed us was the whole customization mode where you can build up your own car from scratch. They have what they say, like 1,000 different Lego pieces in here. They have some Lego Technic pieces. And so you can build some pretty wild things. I did notice that if you bring the car that you build in the customizable mode into the main game, into the story mode, like there's no driver for those, because who knows if you even put a seat on the car? I think that's
just something you kind of have, like you put on the car, probably.
It could be. Yeah, I didn't see it when I tried it. I think this is part of
this process that like, in the 20 minutes or whatever we had to play around with it, like we really didn't get to experiment with. But I remember there being like in the Lego stuff, like, I think there was like a driver as well.
Okay,
but I could be wrong.
No, that could be. And then it's interesting for like all the cars that you have in that customized mode in the garage, you can also see instructions for all of those existing vehicles and like rebuild them layer by layer. And so it's one of those things of like, I don't know why I didn't expect it fully, but jumping into that mode, I was really impressed. But like, what? If you're making a Lego game, let us go piece by piece and basically get the full Lego bucket here as we try and assemble whatever monstrosity we wanted. And I made one car to try and look cool. And then I made another one just to try and test the boundaries of it, where it was just basically the base of the car, and then it just had like 2 giant pillars of kind of the circular Lego pieces going straight up as far as I could go. And I'm like, I'm just going to drive this around and see how it goes. It was kind of funny then because they have like a test track, and they have like gates that you drive through in the test track. And my car was so tall, it was like destroying the gates as it was going through every single one, just taking out the top of it. So you can make some weird monstrosities in there. So I was impressed by that overall.
Yeah, and it's really nice with the interface. Like you kind of start with just sort of like basically a set of axles.
Right.
It's like you pick the length between your wheels and the size of wheels and all that basically. And then you just start just dropping Lego bricks on top of it. So it can be a little bit intimidating. But with the paint and stuff like that, there's some nice tools to, or like one of the first tutorials they do is just like pick a red section and put this paint on it, and everything that's red will turn green or whatever.
Yep.
And that was, that was really nice. So you don't have to go through piece by piece painting the car.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting coming to the end of 2023, and we have to look back to see who had the best car building, Lego 2K Drive or Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It's going to be a fierce battle between everybody to try and figure out who did it best.
We should talk about the co-op too.
Yeah.
Because we did a little bit of that with 6 players in it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what was cool with that, what reminded me there, it was Goat Simulator. It's very similar to where it's like, I'll be just running around, doing your collectibles, exploring the world. But then when somebody goes to like this pink activity point, then it pulls all of you together to do an activity. And so like some of the ones we were doing, it would be like sort of like a point-to-point race, but they just like put like little objective markers on the map one at a time. And like it was just like a race to get that to that spot first. And then maybe if you're behind, you wouldn't be able to catch up, but the next spot that pops up would be closer to you, so you could kind of snag it from the leader. So yeah, it was a nice little thing like that.
Yeah, it's cool. You can play so much of the game co-op. I mean, basically the whole campaign, you can drive around and play co-op. I really enjoyed, they said there's going to be split screen on all the consoles. They also said split screen on the PC version, which I was like, yes, it's just one of those things that maybe it's getting more and more common.
2-player for split screen, but with the whole open world.
That's right. And they said, at least in the demo, at least there was no online voice chat. So, you might be talking over Discord if you're willing to play this game with your friends and whatnot. We were, for the co-op mode, the first challenge that we were warped to was a game of red light, green light.
Yeah.
I've never been more confused in my life. I don't know what the hell is going on there. It was just like they dropped us all in, and all of us in this demo were like, what is happening? Because the screen was just like, bam, bam, bam. It was just constant explosions because we didn't even know what the hell we were playing.
Yeah. So basically you're supposed to go on green and stop on red, but it just felt like if you were just moving at all, even if you had like slammed on the brakes and you were still have momentum, your car would just explode.
Who knows? It's still being worked on in some ways, but maybe once we get the hang of it. Like, I like the idea of a red light, green light mode with 6 players. Like, that sounds like a blast. I noticed, let me tell you, Blood, let me tell you when you lit up like a Christmas tree. When we were playing co-op and you found the rockets, I think it was like, you found the rockets like going off a jump. And so suddenly your car, you're trying to like boost forward, but then your car has like rocket thrusters keeping you in the air a little bit. You were giggling like a madman when you found that.
Yeah. They have these. Yeah, those are just in the open world, these little power-ups. And with this, it's just like, okay, it was in that UFO area, I think.
Yeah.
To where like there are these rocket power-ups, and if you jump into them, then you can hold the jump button, I think, to just have those rockets burning. And then there is another really cool area, a later biome, which was all Halloween themed. Yeah. And so like some of the races, like you would race through like a swamp with alligators, and there would just be like zombies and skeletons and all this stuff. Hauntsboro is what it called.
That's right. Yeah.
And they had a similar thing there with bats, where you could jump into a flock of bats, and then the bats would sort of like carry you like a glider. That's good. So you could glide around with this flock of bats.
That's fun. The other thing that really made you laugh that I noted, and it's not just because I'm a big Easy Allies fan that I was paying attention to what you were laughing at, but the other one was there's an alien character and his name is Hugh Man. And every time he showed up, he seemed to be your favorite character in the entire game. He gotcha. Did you do that one mission in Big Butte where you're like stopping the alien invasion, where it's kind of like a little tower defense thing where there's like alien robot type things like
no, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it's like on a farm and there's like, I think there were robots, which is confusing, but they're like marching towards these beacons and you need to like take your Lego car and drive it around and like ram into them to stop any of them from touching the towers. So I was impressed just by those little odds and ends that they're squeezing into this thing.
Yeah, I saw one, which I think was an interesting way of playing with their rule set. There's an activity where you have to race with the wrong car, essentially.
Okay.
So they basically make you do an obstacle course on the dirt with one of the street cars. And so you had to get through that with hitting as few cones as possible, and like every cone that you hit added to your time.
Okay, right on. Big question marks. What do you have about this game? What have we yet to see that you're concerned about? Things to fill in?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like I have a lot of concerns.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's one of the nice things about seeing something before it's been announced is that you don't have those, preconceived notions of what this is going to be or expectations or whatever. I just think this is going to be like this 6-player online co-op is just going to be a blast to play around with people.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't need to be doing anything particularly special as long as it runs well and
as long as it runs well.
Super frustrating going on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed like the variety of activities that I saw, but we didn't get to play that much in the open world. I mean, there's still a lot of other areas to go to and stuff. So I'm curious like how many quests are going to be repeated. I didn't see anything, too alarming at that point, but also like we saw the world map and it looked like the tutorial area and then 3 biomes. There was like space for
4.
Is that right?
I think it was like a spoke. Like there was this place in the center, and then there was like 4.
And I don't know. Yeah, it looked like maybe the 4th one, maybe it wasn't filled in yet. Maybe I was looking at a different map or something at that point. But it's like, okay, I don't know if that means it's going to be DLC or that's included in there. But it's like, worst case scenario, this game might be a little bit on the short end without a huge open world. But you know what? Like for a Lego open world co-op racer, like I don't need this thing to be Forza Horizon 5 size by any means. And then my other concern is the big question mark of just microtransactions. They had Unky's Emporium, which are the garages, and they're like, that's our store. Don't go in there yet. We're not ready to share exactly what's going on in there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, with 2K's history, with the NBA games in particular, it's like, okay, this is going to have some microtransactions in it. The good news is, out of the first couple hours that we got to play, at least, it wasn't in your face for like, now is this tutorial for going to buy something from Unky's Emporium, but that's still something that I'm curious to see once it's out, what that looks like in the finished game.
Yeah, I feel like it could be similar to like Hot Wheels Unleashed, where it's like you had a really solid, complete game, but then they just started just piling it on with all of these, extra Hot Wheels things that you could get. But like I said, I really like with the story cars that you unlock, I'm really happy with the variety.
Yeah.
I guess one thing I would be looking for with the build mode and stuff is just how easy it will be to share. Because that's a big thing in racing games is like just going on and browsing through like everybody's designs and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, cool. Like they're like there's inevitably like a near automata, painting on a car and you download that for your Lamborghini or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, there was an option in the customized option or menu for like download. So it seems like there's going to be something like that. But yeah, our people are going to be making the Jurassic Park Jeep. It's basically, instead of time to kill or time to explosive barrel, in this game it's going to be time to Jurassic Park Jeep upload. Like how quickly can somebody get that in the game? So we'll see. I'm interested in what's going on here with Lego. We've heard stories from VGC in particular about a couple future games from TT Games, from Traveler's Tales, TT Fusion, from those being canceled. There was a Lego Disney game that was canceled, apparently, a Lego Guardians of the Galaxy game. And now with seemingly Lego getting in bed with 2K, in addition to, the Apple games, like Lego's Builder's Journey, and it seems like they're branching out quite a bit more. So I wonder if this means kind of the era of the TT Games, Lego games is kind of, they're not going to be alone anymore.
Yeah, they definitely aren't, and they haven't really been entirely anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did say that this is the first game in a multi-game partnership. So
yeah, and
definitely curious as to like what other directions they can take it.
Yeah,
and as you're saying, they said Visual Concepts is the studio, but they also said that they hired this team specifically for this game. So I'm very, I'd love to know like what other racing games and stuff these guys have worked on.
I mean, at the time of this recording, at least, we don't have those details. I definitely have some follow-up questions that I have for 2K, and I'd love to talk to that team in some way. But, VGC, again, they reported this game's existence, I think it was last year. And then with that...
Oh, did they?
Yep. Then they also said that 2K was also working on a Lego soccer game, that Sumo was developing that. So I'm curious to see what that's going to be like, and whether all these games will have cameos from different Lego properties and stuff popping in here. I didn't see anything licensed in here, but I'm curious to see where they go. This seems like an obvious direction for DLC. Or you think they could go for like Lego Island themed DLC, just to really lean into like full nostalgia for people that are nostalgic about an open world Lego game like this?
I don't even know that one.
Oh, you don't know Lego Island?
Going outside of my wheelhouse entirely.
It has a weird cult following out there, Blood. But yeah, I enjoy my time with this game, and that was my takeaway. It's like, oh, this would be like a Lego Island for a whole new generation. Like it seems. But
when you're talking about those other franchises and stuff, and that's where I really see like your potential for the stuff they might throw in there as DLC.
Yep.
Because like I was just looking at the new Zen Pinball thing, right? And it's like, all of those things that like, oh, the Indiana Jones table, oh, the Star Wars table. It's like, oh no, these cost money.
Yep, for sure.
And so I think it's going to be like that with Lego too. It's like, oh, you want, that officially licensed whatever car, you're going to have to put down a little bit of extra because Universal Studios wants their cut. So.
Yep, exactly. And it's weird now, since it's not a Warner Brothers game, like which licenses they can get. I'd imagine through Lego, everything's on the table still, but it's a weird one. But that's the business, man. The core of it is that I had a good time playing with this game. The only big downside is it's called Lego 2K Drive. It's not a good name, man. Blood?
I don't know.
You like it?
I don't know. Like it's weird because like I don't know why 2K needs to stick their name in it at all. Because
of the sports success, like they think of 2K as a hot brand now,
But I mean, just even Lego Drive would probably be enough to like. That's what it is. That's what you want. So.
Right. And the weird thing is, there was another game called 2K Drive that was a mobile game.
Oh, was there?
So
no.
Maybe it's one of those games that secretly, was downloaded 100 million times or something. So they're trying to tap into like that success. I'm not too sure, but yeah, May 19th. This thing is. Was
it actually from 2K or was it just a copycat?
Really fun. Yeah, it was from Warner Brothers, but the resolution was 2K. So they go, no, I think it was from 2K. Yeah, I think it actually was. Anything we missed, Blood?
I think we're good. It was Oh yeah. Oh, you know what? The Forced Zone. Aren't you? The whole point is you're trying to get to the Sky Cup.
Oh, for like the story mode thing? Yeah, that's
so I think that might be it. It's like you couldn't see it yet because that's the whole goal of doing all these other races.
Interesting. And that's where you're going to take on Shadow Z, who they introduced in the beginning as the quote obvious bad guy. Like, yeah, it's fun. Like, I'm pretty judgy with the Lego humor because I think TT Games and TT Fusion in particular, I think those games are so funny. Like Lego City Undercover, hand to God, I think it's the funniest game ever written. Like, I think the game is just incredible. And so this is definitely going for a jokey tone, but I'm a little bit of a snob with that. Like, okay, you got to outdo TT Fusion with this one. Let's see how you do. But it was funny. And like the animation style, it's much more in the vein of like Lego Movie. Like even with Skywalker Saga, they weren't trying to mimic that like full stop motion look, but for the cutscenes in this one, they definitely are. So it's interesting to see them pick a whole new direction with a whole new publisher here. But Blood, thank you for talking about Lego games with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Blood, you know where I'm going to go? You know what my favorite URL is? I'll tell you, Blood. It's Patreon. It's patreon.com/easyallies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got a whole new revamped tiers over there, man. Check it out.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you should go over to patreon.com/MinnMax there.
Oh, please. You're too kind, Blood. You're too kind.
Help these guys out. Do it. Interviewing Tim Schafer over here.
Oh, yeah. La-di-da. Yeah. Oh, well, I know on the last podcast, at least that I listened to of Easy Allies as of the time of this recording, you haven't listened or watched Psych Odyssey yet, but man, you need to watch Psych Odyssey. It is the best. But we lost our minds with that here at MinnMax because I think that's code for just I lost my mind with it because I watched all 22 hours in one weekend. And then I was wow. I need to make so much content about this. So we have kind of like a mini series of content that's devoted to just kind of unpacking that documentary because it is, without a doubt, the greatest documentary about video game development ever made. It is It'll make you cry. It'll make you laugh, blood. I don't know what we're all in this job for if we're not going and supporting Double Fine Psych Odyssey, because it's everything I've ever wanted. So that's why my favorite URL is doublefinepsychodyssey.net, or I don't know what it is. All right. Thank you so much, blood. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Did you know that you can more than double the amount of podcasts from MinnMax every single week by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon? You don't have to listen through the browser or anything dumb like that. You'll get access to a private RSS feed if you support us on Patreon. You put it in your favorite podcast app, and then bam, you can listen to our weekly bonus podcast Party Chat, the podcast versions of The Deepest Dives, MinnMax interviews, Max spoilers, and you get the MinnMax Show podcast a day earlier than everybody else. So please help support independent games media. Head over to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's.